Welcome back, Amor.
Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.
Magandang gabi rin po.
Okay. Amor Maclang, reputation strategies. Okay. Can we jump in right away dun sa mainit na usapan? Yung pinakitang, yung nag-debut, yung nag-premiere na political ad ni Senator Bongo. I don't know, Amor, kung napanood mo na. Pwede ba natin pa i-playback? Okay. Chester? What can you say, Amor? That political ad of Senator Bongo.
Sir, remember nung last time magkakasama po tayo, sabi ko po, nabanggit ko po that there are 3 narratives na magpapapanalo ng isang tao, no? And it's been a constant narrative since the beginning of time. Ma-Amerika ka, ma-Pilipinas, tatlo lang yung narrative na yan di ba? Time for a change, which Obama used, and then also continuing legacy, right? Or bringing things back to the way they were, right? The Trump make America great again. Or a continuation of what was. So obviously, this is following that time-tested playbook. Whether we agree or not, the administration still continues to enjoy a certain level of popularity. Obviously, they're capitalizing on this, no? Yun po ang comment ko nung una ko po itong napanood.
Okay, so it's following one of the 3 time-tested narratives. But Amor, this one in particular, you think it will work?
Okay, ngayon, nakita ko po na marami pong mga bumatikos, no, at mga komentaryo on the ads. But if there's one thing that I think we should try to remember, reactions on social media don't necessarily translate to votes, right? Hindi dahil maingay sa social media in one direction or marami kang supporters. Kasi pa ang internet, ang Facebook, yung mga feeds natin, sorry to say this, it's an echo chamber. Okay?
Correct.
It's not reflective of really what's happening in real life, right? What's happening in the trenches. Kadamihan dyan, kung halimbawa, puro pink ang nakikita mo, it's because kadamihan ng mga kaibigan mo ay pareho mo mag-isip, right? So yun, kadalasan po ay echo chamber siya. So, in my case, for example, kailangan talagang gumamit tayo ng teknolohiya para marinig kung anong nangyayari on ground. And even that is not a reliable barometer of how you perform in the polls. No? Sorry, I could not give you anything more definitive one way or another, but I'll tell you one thing. Whoever is leading now will not win. Pustahan tayo, Kuya Patrick.
Bakit? Ba't mo naman nasabi yun, Amor? Kutob?
Historically, sir, sige nga, pustahan tayo. Tell me a candidate na naunang naglatag ng cards nila on the table na nanalo. Lahat sila. Era.
Si Erap.
Siya lang.
After 2 years, di ba?
Landslide dyan, Manny Tsaka medyo mahina kalaban, Manny.
Mahina,
mahina kalaban.
Mahina, di ba?
Para naman yun.
Really, those are cards close to their chests. So parang maganda yung ginagawa ni Inday Sara, di ba? Ako palagay ko lang, but that's just me.
What do you mean maganda yung ginagawa niya na since lumamang siya early in the surveys, parang umatras siya? Is that what you're saying?
Actually,
para pinababaan niya ng sadya yung kanyang number?
Diba? Ang daming alingaw-ngaw. I get feedback from all over. Sinasabi nila na, nandito siya, diba? Consulting with God, etc. May mga ganyan ako nakukuhang feedback. The fact that she is really keeping her cards close to her chest, I think is a very good strategy on her part.
She continues to tease,
it has certainly worked for PRRD, diba? But Whether that will work or not, I can't say. But what I can tell you will not work is if you trend early enough. Naku, sigurado, kuya.
Malakas na.
Hindi mananalo.
Ma'am,
Pero,
sino
Ma'am
bang
Amor,
early trender ngayon?
Ikaw, sir, sino sa palagay mong early nagtitrend?
Sino ba? Panginoon, pasok!
Hindi ko masabi. Pangalan eh.
Bakit? Si sir naka-pink ko, meron ka bang gustong sabihin?
Hindi naman pink yan. Actually, fuchsia. Hindi ko lang alam ang spelling ng fuchsia.
pero ma'am, kasi in less than 2 weeks, cards on the table na yan. Deadline na ng substitution sa November 15 eh. 11 days nga lang eh. Maglilitaw na talaga yung sinong kandidato eh. So, in which case, in 11 days, parang lahat sila pantay-pantay na yan.
Pantay na.
Wala nang
Pero
itatago.
sinong papalitan ni Inday Sara in case siyang mag-substitute?
Pero alam mo, Kuya Ed, parang yan panliligaw eh, di ba? Parang panliligaw. You don't show all
Ipapakipot ng konti.
Pakipot
you don't show all
muna.
of your bits in one go, right? So it's all about teasing and seduction, and I think everyone is enjoying
Seduction. That's the word. Diba? That's the word. Seduction. And we saw that in 2015, 2016.
It's one elections are one mind job, guys. Come on, di ba? Kaya nga, entertain tayong lahat dito eh. So, yun ang kailangan natin, di ba? All the anticipation may or may not want us to want this candidate, di ba? So, di ba? Parang sometimes hindi mo talaga gusto pero hard to get, pero wow. Bumigay,
kumbaga,
right? For this person and maybe it's worth it.
Kumbaga, Amor, yung binibitin, yun ang
Yun ang lamang.
Yun ang sinahabi.
Your words,
binibitin.
baka matroll ako dito. Your words, not mine. But I cannot disagree with you, sir.
Yun.
Pero yun nga, ma'am in 11 days, wala nang bitinan kasi I suppose latag na lahat.
So, sino nga? Ang tanong ko
I have
ngayon.
to go back to that. Di ba? By the 15th, you're in or you're out.
Pero
Sino
sir,
pa
I'll
pala?
tell you something this much I'll say, dahil marami naman tayong kaibigan in both camps, no? And we're talking to some of them, and sabi ko, sino ba talaga? These are bosom buddies, no? Who would take a bullet for me, and they're telling me, Amor, until now, we really don't know. Especially in the camp of the government, talagang may dalawang scenarios pa sila na tinitingnan, right?
I don't think even they know. I don't think even they know.
Totoo po yun.
Possibly.
And Kuya Ed, sabi mo 11 days in anticipation is a long time, sir. It's a long time.
That's true. Yeah.
But you know, the idea that they are making us anticipate and whet our appetite and want it's part of the it's part of the play, and it's working. Seems to be working. All the clamoring, right? So you holding your cards as long as possible, tapos nagka-clamor from the ground, right? Ang ganda ng narrative, di ba?
Parang narinig ko na yan yung narrative na yan ni-reverse.
Panginoon, lahat naman na yan, lahat naman na yan, di ba? Sabi ko nga, it's all a playbook, right? It's all a playbook.
Well, may kasabihan dyan, Amor, di ba? Human impulses don't change, have not changed. Pareho pa rin yan. Since the time of the Greeks, ganyan din yan. Di ba? Para mga Greko, hindi nagbabago ang tao.
That's the shirt, Kuya Patrick, and I'll buy it.
Yun.
Sabi ni Amor, may dalawang senaryo. Ano yung dalawang senaryo?
Okay, one scenario, alam naman natin, posible that, Inday Sara can run as number 2 to say, for example, BBM. That's one scenario. Or she won't run, right? She won't run at all or support someone else. Admittedly, the Sara magic is there, right? So she's seen as independent, this fierce woman, independent of even the administration. Ang galing, di ba? Duterte, pero not quite, right? Has a mind of her own, right? Matigas pero malambot, right? So it's pangliligaw nga, guys. It's all the what's the word? Putting it side by side, no? I hate to use the word, but juxtaposing, no? The tension between the narrative is what makes Inday Sara so seductive, di ba? Feminine but not quite. Duterte but not quite, right? So, the fact na hindi natin siya, sabi nga ng lola ko, ma-spelling, right? Everyone's anticipating. Everyone is just waiting, right? That is part of the seduction. And I think I really have to give them credit for that.
That is under an ideal situation. Pero baka may mga family dynamics involved na hindi natin alam.
Sir, ano po yun? Pakiulit lang, sorry.
Under an ideal situation, tama yung analysis. Pero maraming factors na siguro may family dynamics involved na hindi natin alam.
No, totoo po yun, no? Ang daming permutation. Pero ako, for me, medyo this particular election, it seems to be more predictable than the earlier ones.
Really?
Ang siguro ang caveat ko lang, mga kuya, kung sino yung mga strategists dyan, don't listen to your own echo chamber. Yan ang isang trend na very dangerous.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, that's what social media and Facebook has reduced us to, or reduced people to. Naniniwala doon sa feed nila. Sa Facebook feed nila na yun na yung mundo.
Tama si Kuya Pat.
Diba, algorithm yan. Diba?
Tumingin ka kasi sa produkto yung advertise nila.
Ano yung nilalike mo?
Napatigil ka na matagal.
Yan ang push sa'yo ng Facebook.
Yan ang isusubo at isusubo na sa'yo hanggang magsawa ka. Pero tao, hindi nagsasawa, Amor. Diba? Yan eh. It's artificial intelligence.
Patrick, diba? Kung ano yung kiniklik mo. Right? Nung unang panahon, no? Nung unang panahon, di ba dati, sabi ko nga, everything you needed to learn in e-commerce, you learn from pornography, right? If you click something, hinahabol ka ng ad.
Ay, hindi ko alam yun.
Hindi ko alam yun.
Hindi alam niya yun.
Pero, right? Grabe, I'm so comfortable around you guys. Baka matroll ako dito. Basically, kung ano yung kiniklik mo, hahabulin ka. Tinatawag na programmatics, di ba? So ngayon, mas matalino ang internet at ang social media. Yung algorithm na yan, hahabulin ka.
Totoo yan.
We think it's kismet, right? It's fate, but it's not. It's just algorithm. So kung ano yung nilalike mo, yan ang ipupush. Tama si Kuya Patrick.
It's artificial intelligence, Amor.
In so long.
It's artificial intelligence. Di ba?
Correct, di ba? Correct. Di ba kasi nung panahon natin, Kuya Ed, akala natin, when things get pushed to at, di ba, it's fate, it's kismet. Ngayon, hindi. It's all algorithm, guys.
Yes.
Correct.
Teka, baka yung iba hindi alam ang ibig sabihin ng kismet. Ipaliwanag mo ang kismet.
Ikaw na, sir.
With one S, with one S.
It's too early for me to get romantic. Ikaw na, Kuya Ed.
Parang destiny, parang fate.
Correct. Destiny, diba?
Kismet.
Nakikita ko yung salita na yun, pero I never really encountered. Saan galing yung salita na yun? What is an American culture?
Someone used it on me and it worked.
Ayun. Is he around? Nandiyan ba? Natabi mo ba ngayon?
Ay, teka, balikan natin si Bongo kasi pinakita natin kanina. Well, the long and short of it, sa tingin mo, will it add to his numbers or will it not add to his numbers? Yung projection doon sa ad na yun.
Sir, following the narrative of continuing, alam mo, if there's one thing, I'm very vocal about this, no? If there's one thing that this government could really have improved on in hindsight, it's the way they communicate. They really don't care about optics, they don't care about communications, pero maraming nagawa, right? Infrastructure, etc., among other things, whether people admit it or not. The fact na tinatali yung mga accomplishments ng administration sa kanya na para siyang the anointed one, right? The anointed one.
Yeah.
I think to those who continue to support the administration, this will definitely work, right? And So it will work to those who already have drank the Kool-Aid, dun sa mga naniniwala, and it will not work dun sa mga hindi.
Amor, question, okay?
Apo.
Will people get over seeing Senator Bongo as nothing more or simply a man Friday? Oh, yan. Sino na gumamit ng salita? Alalay. A man Friday of the President. Yeah.
Alam
Diba?
mo, okay. So, alam mo itong narrative, yung tinatawag na by transference, right? So, itong transference strategy, hindi lang naman si Bongo ang either gumagamit or nakikinabang or hindi nakikinabang. Nandyan din. Come on. You're singling out Bongo. Ginamit niya ni Pinoy. Sumalangit nawa po kaluluwa niya.
Si Ramos, ginamit din niya.
Ginagamit po yan ng mga Marcoses, di ba? So, or di ba? So, or even Gloria.
Pero Amor, sorry Amor, ibang klase itong Senator Bongo, yung kumbaga yung character niya, yung persona niya na pinortray niya. As opposed to, let's say, Pinoy and Mar Rojas or Cory and FVR. So, there is that, don't you think? Na
Opo.
he needs to break out of this mold na...
Kuya Patrick, if there's something that I will give him credit for, is that he's never been inconsistent, right? In other words, his narrative has never changed, di ba?
Okay.
Hindi naman
Consistency.
alam mo, ang ayaw ng tao, yung mga balimbing or
Yun.
people are
Papalit-palit.
to be disingenuous, di ba? Consistent naman siya, di ba, sa kanyang positioning. Hindi naman po siya nagbago.
Okay.
Pero yung video na pinalabas, yung quality, anong masabi nyo? Okay ba siya?
Okay.
Natatawa ka ba, Manny?
It means nothing. It means Jack, right? So for me, it may not resonate with me because honestly, I've had the opportunity to work with his office, the people in his office, and they're good. They're really good. So I feel like it's in a way doing a disservice to at least what I know of the office of Bongo and Senator Go. Because I've had the chance to work with them. Nakikinig talaga sila. I mean, I'm a nobody. Nakikinig sila, inaaral nila ang mga issue. And I feel like it kind of doesn't give him enough credit for what he's done, right? Pero I suppose they're trying to play off on numbers and they're hedging their bets and saying that, you know what, the president continues to be popular in certain sectors, in a majority of sectors, and they're gonna play it. But I feel like it doesn't really give credit to what he's done.
Amor, I have one question. What has Bongo contributed to the economy?
Sorry?
Ano nagawa ni Bongo? Kasi tinitignan ko first time ko na nakita sa Senado, kino-coach pa niya ng isang galing sa London. Okay.
Ito po ang aking opinion, no. Ang mga politiko is not just judged based on yung kagalingan nila per se as a person. I tend to judge, and I think we should look at politicians based on, say, the cordon sanitaire na pinapalibot nila sa sarili nila. So, pag tinanong ako, Amor, magaling ba itong politika na ito? I tend to say, he is only as good as the people he surrounds himself with. So, for example, no? So, kaya nga medyo hit and miss si Pangulo, si PRRD. On some sectors, like, believe it or not, guys, on the financial services side, open finance side, ang galing ng gobyerno. Wala lang nagsasalita about that, no? But we are actually lording it over regionally and globally. Believe it or not, maybe for another discussion we can talk about it. But then when it comes to, say, for example, other aspects, like, say, for example, the way they're doing the response to certain problems, like, say, COVID, they probably are not presenting themselves as well as they should, no? So ako po, yun ang siguro alternative view na pwede kong ilagay, na i-put out. when you judge a politician, don't just judge them by their own person, but rather by the type of people they surround themselves with. So si PRRD, ang I think the current challenge is medyo mixed bag.
Okay.
Okay.
Amor, maiba naman tayo ng kandidato. Okay. What can you say about how the Isko campaign is running? Because he seems to be in a
Okay.
tough spot. You know, he seems to be in a tough spot. He's not quite opposition. He's not quite administration. From the way we see it, the Lenny campaign is trying to win over his supporters. There's also part of support for Isko na medyo Duterte ang base ng support din ni Isko. So what can you say? Parang nasa gitna siya ng mga nag-uumpugang bato.
Actually po, sir, siguro ang masasabi ko dyan, number one, if there's someone who could really present a fresh voice or present a new narrative, it could be Isko, right? Because everyone is... Okay, I'll tell you something, guys, no? Which may or may not be connected to Isko. Overseas, you're seeing this billionaire race, right? For the moon.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, if we are willing to lap up a narrative na the leader that we want and the leader that we need is someone who can bring us to the moon, no? This literal moonshot. Ibig sabihin, ang narrative na hinihingi natin is someone who can propel us to the future. So, wala pang gumagamit ng narrative na yon, no? So, ayan, we're giving out free advice, right? No one is using that particular narrative. But it seems to be, sorry Kuya Ed, tulungan mo ko. Ano ba yung Tagalog ng zeitgeist, no? Yun yung parang prevailing desire, unspoken desire ng mga tao. Obviously, gusto natin someone who can propel us to the future. Because ayan, pinagpapapaniwala natin yung mga si Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, etc., etc. The Philippines is no exception. And yet, despite that, tinatanong ko kayo, how come all of the narratives of those who are about to run are all not forward-looking, but all looking to the past? So, for example, siguro ang i-recommend ko lang kay Mayor Isko, di ba? Sir, of all the candidates, ikaw yung parang pinaka-potentially malinis na slate, pwede kang gumawa ng sarili mong narrative, you could be that president who can potentially propel us to the future. Bakit hindi mo yon ginagamit? Right now, ang narrative mo, it's either for or against someone, right? Di ba nga, meron pong nagbanggit kay Mayor, and I have such high regard for his work in Manila. Sabi nila, bakit ang iyong posisyon ay laban kay Marcos? So in other words, the unspoken there is, what do you really stand for, right? So when what you stand for is always, and this is not just kay Mayor, when most of what you stand for is against something, people tend to wonder, what do you really stand for, right? So
right. Kasi medyo di ba? Tira siya sa kaliwat kanan Titira kay BBM, titira kay Duterte, titira din kay Lenny.
Correct.
So you're saying Amor, that of all the candidates, Isko could have been that candidate na a promise for the future.
Di ba?
Right?
I mean, if you think about it, right? Yun ang hinahanap nating lahat.
Bata pa siya, di ba? Tsaka siya pinakabata sa kanila lahat.
Pinakabata, may itsura, may dating, di ba? So, he can actually stand for something that we are all yearning for. Hindi lang maging laban kay Marcos or laban kay Lenny or laban kay Duterte, di ba? Kasi kung ang positioning mo ay laban ka, then people tend to wonder, what do you really stand for? What do you really believe in?
Right.
Kaya lang, parang si Mayor, masyadong populist yung mga binibitawan niya lately, no? Nangako na pabawasan ang tax gasolina ng 50%. Parang naalala ko si Duterte. Parang naalala si Duterte kanyang 3 to 6 months na
6 months?
i-end yung drug problem. Parang gano'n
Pero sir, naalala nyo nung panahon ni PRRD noon, nagbigay siya sa atin ng bagong naratibo. Meaning, dati, wala namang nakaka-recognize na may drug problem eh.
Right,
Although,
right.
personally, I've seen it because I've campaigned in the provinces, etc. Sa Manila, walang nakakaalam na mayroong prevailing drug problem. Pero binigyan niya tayo ng bagong kaaway, a new boogeyman to rally against, and it was plausible, right? So, he gave us something other than just being against opposition. And it rallied the country. So right now, I think what I am hoping to see in this crop of candidates would be give us an aphrodisiac, right? Going back to our panliligaw analogy, di ba? Give us something to believe in. Give us our opiate.
Right. And that can only
And
come
maybe
from
you
Isko.
win.
That can only come from Isko. Because that can come from ano, that cannot come from Lenny.
Gagaling din sa Norte.
And Sarah.
Oo.
Si Sarah magaling mambugbog. That's all. Ang alam ko sa kanya.
Pero sir, hindi po ba napaka-charming ng narrative? Parang may tension.
Hindi charming sa akin yan eh.
Feminine,
Si Sarah never been charming to me.
Right?
Si Bato, pwede na kasi yung style niya, sinasabi niya na pag hindi mo binoto, miski binayaran ka, estafa yun.
Alam mo, Panginoon, sorry
no?
no?
Nakaisip nun.
Sa ordinaryong Pilipino, makakita ka ng cute na mistisong babae na nambukod ng lalaki, okay? Hindi negatibo yun, Panginoon.
Hindi.
Attractive yun. Attractive yun, oo, sa pangkaraniwang Pilipino. Hindi na tinitingnan na masamang babae, tinitingnan, bibilib sila sa babae na yan.
Totoo yun.
Yun lang, no? Yun lang talaga for the ordinary Filipino.
Lahat na yan, everything we need to learn in this election, we learned sa panliligaw.
Right. Oh, doon lang iikot yan. Di ba? Classics. Amor. Yan ata nakakalimutan ng maraming tao. It's the classics.
Predictable.
Oo, it's the classics. Kailangan talaga pinag-aaralan ng mga yung classics eh. Mula pa nung panahon ng mga Greeks. Yan. Yung kwento ng mga Greek gods, puro panliligaw at deception at saka pang-uutuan nangyari ng mga yon. Yun lang talaga playbook dyan dapat.
Kaya ang galing ng mga taga-Norte.
Yung mga generation ngayon, Amor, hindi na alam yung mga classics eh.
Hindi, di ba?
Hindi na, nakalimutan na.
Pero totoo yun.
Nakalimutan na nila.
Puro K-pop na eh.
Ay, hindi lang yun, Manny. Medyo politically correct ka mga kasi pag-aaral ngayon eh. Puro PC. Yan ang problema.
Di ba?
They're time-tested
another discussion.
Lessons on human behavior. Hindi mo nagbabago tao eh. Human impulses have not changed. They have not changed from the time of prehistory or ancient history.
Amor, ano masabi mo kay Ping Lacson? Kasi tahimik eh. Tahimik ba?
Si Ronald ang dapat tanungin dyan. Yun ang guest natin. Si Ronald Llamas ang dapat tanungin dyan.
Ito na lang, Amor, what does Ping Lacson need to do? Libreng advice ulit.
Alam mo, ito yung challenge kay Senator Ping, di ba? The narrative of a tough man. Okay? The narrative of an administration is canceled out by the next administration, no? 'Di ba? So, halimbawa, FBR and then after FBR, parang yung sumunod na pangulo canceled out this narrative, right? So it's always time for a change. So galing tayo sa tough man, galing tayo kay pangulo. So I don't think a tough man narrative, right, will work. So yung mananalo the next, I would say, yung mananalo after kay PRRD will be either a diametric opposite of. And kaya nga sabi ko, ang galing nung whether deliberate or not deliberate ang positioning ni Inday Sara, no? She could either go, I will continue the progress, or at the same time, merong narrative na I am my own woman and I will not be I will not kowtow to anyone, not even to my father. No? So, open book siya. Kaya pa niyang mag-shape ng narrative. So, compared to what Kuya Ed said earlier, kaya pa niya.
Eh kung diametrically opposed, eh si Lenny yun, di ba?
So, see, the thing is, ako, ito lang ang caveat ko, I remember that week when the vice president declared, right?
Yeah.
Wow, all of my feeds were pink, right? All of my feeds. And then we revisited some historical data, we did some analysis, and I'll tell you guys, yun nga, mag-ingat po tayo dahil baka echo chamber po yung naririnig natin or what we choose to listen to, no? So ako, for me, I think people are really yearning for young, fresh leadership, and to an extent the vice president is being lumped with, right? Is being lumped. Unfortunately, elections are not very, they're not too kind to those of a certain age. There's really a yearning for a fresh type of leadership, youth, young, right? And so for me, ako, I would bet on those who can provide a fresh narrative. Because right now, going back, sir, dun sa sinabi niyo po, ang narrative po ni Vice President is anti, right? It's anti the current administration. So, going back to what I said, if you are against something, then what do you really stand for? Right? So, yun po yung siguro comment ko kay Vice President.
Eh si Manny Pacquiao. Ayan.
Magaling mag-boxing.
Alam mo, sa yaman ni Senator Pacquiao, right? You do know that he even has his own money, right? His own coin, right? So, eto, I'll tell you. For those who might not win, I'm not saying this about Senator. I'm just saying, sometimes an election, you run for an election not to win. You run in an election to stay relevant, 'di ba? Para hindi ka malanta o
Malimutan.
para kahit manalo ka man o hindi, you would be top of mind to some extent. Ang dami po, sorry to say this, ang dami pong tumakbo na natalo, pero eventually, they either benefited from the funds they raised or from the renewed interest that people, renewed perspective that people saw them with, no? Tingnan mo na lang yung election where, say, Grace Po won. Grace Po lost, right? She lost, but she continued to stay relevant, right? So losing an election or running an election and losing doesn't necessarily mean a total loss if you strategize properly.
Eto,
Kaya si
last
Enrile,
na.
mahilig tumakbong presidente dati, di ba si Enrile?
Oh,
Kahit
si
alam
Enrile.
natin matatalo siya.
Katulad yun.
There were several presidential elections where he ran. Di ba?
Eto,
That's true.
Nakatatlo yata si Enrile.
Amor, si
Manny.
Bongbong. Si Bongbong naman, ang pulso natin. Kasi
What
sabi
about,
nyo,
sir? I will
sabi
react,
mo-
but I will not proactively offer my comments. Sige, tanong po, ano po?
So
Kasi
his
sabi mo,
narrative, Amor, seems to be going back, make America great again. Kumbaga, our
Yeah,
version of make America great again. Ibalik sa bagong lipunan. Di ba? When you hear people talk about Nutriban, tahimik noon, and all that. So I think that's his narrative. Of the three narratives that you mentioned, that's his.
Ang feeling ko, sir, ang narrative na what will work. Because BBM is actually scoring well in the polls. We have a very young population. Okay? We have a relatively young, majority of our population is relatively young. And I'll tell you, siguro sa batch natin, iba yung narrative. Pero doon sa mga nakababata, it's not that they forgot about martial law. It's that it's not relevant to them. Because I'll tell you guys, ako po, pumupunta po ako sa mga lugar na kidnapping risk, no? Parts of Mindanao, etc. May mga Abu Sayyaf. And you know what? In those areas, to them, what happened in EDSA was a Metro Manila phenomenon. Okay, this is not my opinion, bak matrol ako na naman. I'm telling you, in areas like, for example, South Cotabato, an area very dear to me, And they
Marcos
will say,
pa rin.
you know what? Si ganito sila, si President Marcos ang semento ng roads namin, nagbigay sa amin ng electricity. Nung kumampanya doon si BBM, literally he was carried by my Tiboli brothers and sisters. Because iba yung narrative nga eh, 'di ba? Iba yung narrative doon. So, kadamihan po mga bata who do not appreciate that the older, 'di ba? They'll say, "Ay nako, it's a boomer thing." Yeah, right, boomer, right? What's the term? Ano yung sinasabi nila? Yeah, boomer, right? To them, it's a boomer narrative if you continue to hark on something in the past. Many people want to look to the future, right? And I'll tell you, wala pa po akong nakikita, at least this current crop, who's latching onto that narrative, no? So,
teka na, gusto ko lang linawin yun, no? Kasi, the Marcoses have spent so much time and money na ninakaw nila sa bayan. They spent so much time involving themselves on multimedia. Ganon sila kalakas. In fact,
ganon po sila ka-strategic.
Ganon sila ka-strategic. Na-revise nila ang history. Lahat ng bagay nagawa nila. Even, there's an article by Ambeto Campo. I remember this fully very well. Because one room, hindi mo pwede nakawin yan. Kung hindi mo kasabwat, at kung by pages mo lang kinukuha, hindi mo magagawa yun. Kailangan by files para mailabas mo yun. One whole room nagawa nila yun. Panahon to nung nawala ang period ng martial law. Panahon ni Marcos, nawala. Wala kang makikita.
Alam mo, if I may lang ng Panginoon, ang mahirap dyan sa ganyang people will probably agree na may ninakaw and all that. But when you ask the man on the street, kasi ako din, I've been also around, sa mga malilito community, when you ask the people, wala naman silang experience doon sa nakawan eh. Pero may experience sila dun sa tahimik nung unang panahon, nakakain ako ng triban, at saka mura mabilihin. Maliman yung mga kanilang references, pero yun yung first-hand experience nila. So how do you compete with that first-hand experience of theirs?
Totoo.
Diba?
Totoo. Tsaka alam mo,
yeah, that's what the opposition is up against, no? Whenever they say never again, pero you see slowly bumabalik, nagiging romanticize ulit yung pananaw ng mga tao dun sa nakaraan. Kasi ang kwento nila simple lang eh. 'Di ba? No triban, tahimik sa mga community and all that.
Masagana 99.
Mahirap.
Pero yung masagana 99, binuko na sila.
Parang lola ko yan eh. Yung lola ko, pag nakakausap ko na, sabi niya, ay, ang ganda ng buhay nung pre-war. Tahimik. Alam mo, yun ang syndrome ng mga tanda, bumabalik sa
Manny kasi, totoo man, at probably it's really true yung nakawan, pero walang first-hand experience ang tao dun sa nakawan. Diba? Hindi naman nila naranasan yun eh. Hindi yun ang experience nila.
Hindi naman yung nakawan ng issue rito eh. Ang issue rito, lahat ng tumatanda, gusto balikan yung panahon nila nung bata. Syndrome yan eh. Talagang hindi na mawala yan.
Because that's their experience. Manny, that's their experience. Kaya huwag tayo magtataka kung bakit ganun pa rin ang pananaw ng maraming tao tungkol sa nakaraang rehimen. They have to go by their own experiences, di ba?
Kasi lola ko.
Tayo naman na nakapag-aral ng mga journalists, syempre iba yung pananaw natin. Dahil pinag-aralan natin yan. Talagang we went in depth in reporting about what happened during that period. Kaya alam natin. We had some sort of first-hand experience through our coverage. Diba? But most people don't have that experience. They have another experience of what happened.
Even journalists.
Kaya nga sa mga ordinaryong mamayan, ordinaryong tao, lalo yung matanda, gusto nilang balikan yung nakaraan. Parang yung lola ko na sabi niya, nung panahon ng hapon, happy siya. Ang hirap-hirap ng buhay ng panahon ng hapon, pero siya happy. Hindi ko maintindihan.
well, mas alam nila yung nangyari ng panahon ng hapon, Manny, di ba? Ang totoo dyan, hindi naman lahat ng buong lahat ng parte ng Pilipinas, I think, was suffered, really, no? Maraming bahagi ng Pilipinas, tahimik lang talaga buhay nila. But anyway, Amor, I mean to ask na a big part of our voting population would be young.
Yes.
Okay?
50%.
Yeah. So
50%.
what are they thinking? What are they looking for?
Sir,
our
going
presumption
back
is,
to what
yeah. Mm.
Opo. So going back, diba, to what I mentioned earlier, people and the young, even those who are na millennials and those who are millennially mindseted. Katulad natin, na hindi man millennial ang edad, pero somehow ang pag-iisip natin makabata, we're all looking to be propelled to the future because we need to get out of this muck, right? Of this rut. God, what happened in 2020, you can literally forget about it. So we need someone who can really pole vault us into the future. And I am stunned that no one is really talking about it. All of their narratives either harken back to before, harken back to what was, or harken back to historical na, anti-Marcos, blah, 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 etc. No? But have you noticed? No one is promising us the moonshot, right? That proverbial moonshot. And tataka lang ako because yung mga nakakabata, yun ang hinahanap nila, di ba? Kung nga, sir, nagpapapaniwala tayo dyan sa mga bilyonaryo sa Amerika, di ba? Ang tataas ng stock prices. Ano ba yun? Gullible ba tayo? O yun, yun talaga ang ating minimithi, right? Some leader who can bring us and propel us to the future. Taas ng stock prices kaya. Sino ang pinakamayamang tao ngayon sa buong mundo? Elon Musk, right? And his very promises, I will bring you all to space, specifically to Mars, right? A few years back, that's science fiction. But obviously, when people invest and put their hard-earned money into the stocks of Tesla, ang ibig sabihin nun, yan ang hinahanap natin, right? Why are we different? We Filipinos are some of the most technologically advanced people in the world. And I'll tell you, in the world. Regardless of the speed of our internet, tayo pinakamataas sa tech uptake, digital quotient, etc., etc.
That I believe.
Pero walang kumakausap sa ating future, parang an appeal to our future sensibilities. Bakit? 'Di ba? Ang galing-galing natin sa ganyan. Pinayaman natin ng buong mundo ang isang tao na nangako na pwede tayong tumira sa Mars. Come on, nung panahon natin, 'di ba? That's science fiction. And now we're believing that.
Ngayon, naniniwala sila.
Correct. Oh, siguro panahon na para ang mga Pilipino ay maniwala sa futuristic.
Science fiction.
Someone who will bring us to the future, yes. Pero parang walang nangangako, di ba? Kayo po, ano palagay nyo? Meron ba?
Si Bato.
Parang ang wala, Amor. Diba?
Wala, di ba?
Wala sa mga mensahe coming out of the candidates na may pangakong ganung kalaking vision.
Kuya Patrick, di ba? Isang rule lang, follow the money trail. Follow the money trail. So if people are investing in a promise of the future, bakit none of our candidates is using that narrative? Yun lang po. I wanna leave you with that.
Kasi naman, Amor, ibang klase talaga si Elon Musk eh. Walang kapantay yung ano nun, di ba? Yung intelligence ng tao na yun.
Yung ano
diba?
niya.
So,
pero grabe, come on. Remember that guy called someone a pedophile, someone who saved kids a pedophile. And yet he was forgiven.
Got away with it.
Bill Gates, with all of his supposed marital infidelity, forgiven because, eto pa, sino pa? Si Jeff Bezos, di ba, in the middle of a messy divorce. Because they gave us something much bigger than. So akong kinakaba ko, yung mga, those who are running on values, desente ako, or a rerun of that script, hindi yan mananalo. PRRD redrew what is valuable. And what's valuable is radical transparency. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Pero tapos na yung era nila, di ba?
Nino po.
Na mga ganyan?
Tapos ng era nila.
Para sa akin, it's not the Duterte, Panginoon eh. It's more like what Amor is saying, these people, these mavericks that will not just say the same old motherhood statements na desente ako, ganyan.
That's correct.
Mas tinatangkilik ng mga tao ngayon yung mga kamukha nila Elon Musk, yung mga mapangahas na mga tao.
Mapangahas, bold.
Oo, bold. Yun ang mga hinahanap nila ngayon. Kaya siguro, in a way, rightly or wrongly, tinangkilik si Duterte in 2015. Parang ilang ata teorya ni... this is not political. This is not a political statement, no, Amor. It's just a way to describe what's happening. Right? Yun.
It's really a sociological observation, di ba?
Right.
And we're just having fun here.
Of course.
Baka kasi misinterpret Amor, no? It's not a political endorsement or
no,
anything.
It's not. We're just having fun.
Yes,
we're observing, right? Oo.
And discussing.
Yun. It's explaining.
Kasi I can't have these types of conversations with anyone else but you guys. So.
Yun.
Kasi si Duterte nag-resonate
it's explaining why people resonate. Why some people resonate. Why some people don't. And since we're in the middle of an election, na it's all about selling yourself, a candidate selling yourself, sino yung mga effective at sino yung mga medyo malamya. Yan ang, dyan tayo tinulungan ni Amor tonight. Ganon.
Yeah.
Basahin.
Parang
Thank you very much, Amor.
Mani.
Isa lang masasabi ko dyan, no? Kasi si Duterte, nung sinabi niya sa mga drug addict at crap na huling Pasko na to, yun na yun. Kasi before that, ang kanyang message is federalism na wala ba kayo?
Walang kasay-say-say. Nabola nga yung sininipimental dyan eh.
Diba? Diba, Manny? And it doesn't matter to people na hindi niya natupad yung 3 months. It didn't matter to people, right, Amor? Alam mo,
but he gave us something that we could all rally around, right? Something we can all rally around. That was not based on a personality. It was something we can all rally around. And that's what I'm missing right now in the current narrative.
It's all motherhood statements, Amor. Diba? Pare-pareho ang statement. Edukasyon, kalusugan, pandemic, trabaho, pare-pareho eh. Pare-pareho
anti-Lenny, anti-BBM, para laging against each other, but nothing for something that we can all rally around.
Parang nung panahon nung 2019, tumakbo si Marojas. Dumating si Marojas, hindi mo maramdaman. Umalis si Marojas, hindi mo rin maramdaman. Hindi mo nga iboboto yun. Di ba?
Iba naman yung problema ni Senator Rojas noon.
Ano, Amor?
Parang medyo, di ba sabi po natin, no, people need consistency, they need sincerity, and when they felt that medyo inconsistent or masyadong staged or tinatawag na, sorry to use the word po, no, disingenuous, hindi makatotoo, people saw through it, grabe. Alam mo ho, ang gusto ng mga population, kahit magmura ka okay lang, no? Kahit magpakita ka ng mga weakness mo, mas gusto nila yon, right? Because technology and social media has so redefined what we need, and people need radical transparency. And in 2016, 2015, that's what President Duterte delivered. And the rules of the game are never the same again.
Correct.
Ang dami ko nakikitang mga mayor, governor na nanalo, 2, 3 asawa, they're out in the open, but they're saying, putting it out there.
Pero nag-umpisa yan si Erap.
Amor, may iba tayo, pero tingin ko, it's a plus for a Filipino politician to have
several wives.
Macho.
Virility yan, Amor. Virility yan. It's a sign of virility and strength, di ba? Anyway, hanggang dito na naman tayo. Medyo oting-oti na tayo.
Oti na.
Okay. Amor Maclang, maraming salamat ulit. Sa uulitan, like we asked you, we will expect us to make a call again and invite you again sa the election.
And I can never say no to you guys. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Amor.
Good night po. Salamat.
Good night.
Ayan.
Patrick.
Siguro, wala nang pabati, pero meron pa bang wika?
Wika na ni Panginoon.
Ganun ba?
Wika na ni Panginoon.
Papasok na ba tayo sa wika? Okay.
Opo.
Maging mapagmasid sa suportahan. Maraming magagaling lang kapag nagliligawan. Ba?
Ayun.
Magaling magligaw, ha? Nagliligawan para sa boto. Amen?
Amen!
Amen.
Amen.
Amen, amen.